Hello, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, depending where you're coming from. Pleased to have you on board today. We have an interesting session today, so I hope you will like where we end up, the tools that I will be sharing with you, and what's coming down the road. There's just so much going on. The world is moving so fast, and we're hopefully at the cusp of that journey that all leaders, coaches need to be embracing. So, and I'm not just talking about AI. So that we will dive into AI a little bit next month. So we have a new theme coming for next month, but it's to do with, we did AI for business. That was a couple of months ago. We will start looking at AI in the workplace, leadership, team dynamics, etc. So thanks for joining. Give me a thumbs up. I see some people already coming on board, so great. Let me get started. Today's topic is leadership intelligence in action. I'm just going to go through some real scenarios today, take you through some experience. There's going to be some standing up, sitting down. So I hope you bear with me as I manage the technology and get us through the agenda for today. So let's see if this is going to work. All right. Yes, there we go. So excited to talk about the book launch. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. We ended up having to split it up into two separate books because it was a lot of information. It would have been close to 500 pages as a book. So this way, we will have the Leadership Intelligence Cookbook versus the Behavior Intelligence Coaches Cookbook. So one for leaders, one for coaches. There is a bit of overlap, but not a lot. The idea is in leadership, you will need access to things that will help you to identify a situation and look up the book for suggestions, ideas on how to navigate that and what sort of things to try and practice within your organization. There's a lot of things. You may sometimes have to go through several chapters, but it's like a thesaurus for leadership or coaching. And there is multiple other books. I hate to say that. I've been hoarding a lot of stuff for decades now, and it's time to get it out there. And the ability for us to do that a lot more easily today is going to mean that there's going to be several versions of new topics to be covered. These are based around leadership and behavior. The next series may be around operations, business, tools, etc. So the challenge is, as I mentioned, things are moving so quickly with AI. We'd love to include a lot of AI in there, but I think the AI stuff is just going to have to be on webinars and blogs while things settle down. It's just moving too fast, okay? And there's just so much that we're able to do. We're adding a lot more software, a lot more tools, many more servers to support international communities in multiple languages. There's just so much going on. It's very exciting. All right, so there is exclusive access to the BIQ methodology within our portal, which I've talked about. The Behavior Intelligence Network, or BIQ.network, is still an important area for you to explore and engage and join others in that community. There it is there. So looking back at 2025 so far, we're coming up to the end almost of Q2. And we've covered a lot of things, and I just wanted to just touch on them because there is some theory to the madness, if you like, that the journey that I'm taking people on. And we wanted to deal with some of the immediate things first, like emailing warm-up, AI for telephony in business, AI in conversations, booking meetings automatically for you. So these were the marketing lead gen pieces that everybody seems to want that first. I think it comes second, but that's a topic for another conversation. So then we went into some of the processes in business and the behavior intelligence network and what's going on there. I've talked a lot about the behavior piece, and we get often into a discussion of, where does this fit into coaching? Are we straying away from coaching, or the reality is I think coaching has strayed away from the original concepts of what coaching is. And so my philosophy of coaching is, like a sports coach, typically sports coaches, the top coaches, are ones that have done it themselves. They've been coached, and now they are coaching others. And it's not someone who has never played the sport, who just loves the sport, who just gets a ticket to say, I'm a coach, and standing on the side of the pool, if you like, and coaching someone, saying, what do you think you should do? No, they are actually bringing expertise. And our philosophy is really, how do we leverage that expertise? How do we take that to the next level? And hence the methodology that I introduced a few weeks ago that we've repeated over and over again. In today's world, we need to look at the process. And I've had this conversation with many people. There's just so many of us that struggle with identifying the fact that our brain follows a process. It's just, you've done it so many times, it's automatic unconscious response. But we end up calling it intuition or gut instinct, or it's just a feeling. I just do it without thinking. Yes, but it's actually a process. And when you learn to map what you do into a process, you can then look at what needs to be delegated versus what needs to be automated. And you automate first and then delegate. Although, because of how quickly things are moving, we didn't have the automate piece before. So we were skipping automate and going straight to delegate. In order to scale your business, you need to know how to do these four things very well. So access to that, I hope I didn't digress too much, but basically we are going through a journey, and next month we'll go back into AI from a different perspective. We'll look at AI, as I mentioned, from a leadership and a coaching perspective. So very excited, things constantly happening, and I hope you can join us. If you can't keep up, do reach out with our BIQ network community, and we'll help you through that process and that journey. So now, like I said, I'm going to go through some real scenarios, and we picked 3 here that seem to be fairly important to people. We've talked about them in some of the sessions that I did last month about scaling, overwhelm, busyness. All of that was addressed. And now let's layer in Okay, do you have to become a psychologist to do this? Do you need a certification? Well, that's where my cookbooks are going to come in handy. All right. So let me jump into that. I'm going to have to sit down because I can't manage all of the technology standing up. But let's just take scenario one, moving someone from overwhelm, or yourself from overwhelm to clarity, right? The typical case here is manager is stuck in analysis paralysis, and what do you do? And in our world, we use the Acumatch map first to map that person's biases, if you like, their filters, their unconscious patterns, so that they can actually visualize and see where this is happening. Okay, so let me just sit down and switch cameras here briefly. Give me 1 sec. Just going to do that. All right, I am now seated, and if you need me back, okay, there I am. Look at that. Okay, so we talked about the cookbook. All right, and that's launching. It's now 2 books, not 1. So it will be exciting. And in fact, here is the book itself. So let's, come on. There we go. Okay, so if you get involved with this, you will be able to see that there is a lot of content in here, okay? And what I'm going to start with is just, let's open a page, all right, and do a search on the topic that we were just talking about, which is overwhelm. And you can see here that there is a number of areas that this gets mentioned, and you can go through and read those. And the layout of the book is very easy to follow. It gives you a situational context. So, this is what behavior intelligence really means, and it explains it. And in contrast, a BIQ savvy, that should be a BIQ. We're still doing edits on the book, so be out shortly. Perhaps the person is overwhelmed and unclear about their priorities. In a leadership scenario, right, you need to be able to help them through that. So if you walk through that, right, you get some insights on that, and then you get the how to deal with that, right? So within here, if I don't know if that's the same practice, but let's go to the next one and read that. Okay, so this one's about anger, frustration, maybe fear that's going on. It's a shorter one, so the context is short, but very clear. And it doesn't beat around the bush, but it gives you what you need to know very quickly, very easily, right? So if we go back into our presentation and moving on to how to deal with that, it says you might even want to look at reframing. Okay, so let's do a search on reframe, right? And see how many reframe topics there are, right? And so it looks like, right, there are lots of contexts relating to reframing, so you may want to narrow that down a little bit further. Otherwise, you'll be reading through all of those. But you get the idea. The tool helps you to identify, or the book helps you to come up with strategies. It may not necessarily be a perfect match to your situation, which is why you might do the search and look through that. If you read the book from cover to cover, you can highlight things. There are sections where you can actually take notes within the book. But let's keep going. So here we are. And this talked about the towards and away from motivation. Now, that is going to be where the AccuMatch map becomes a useful tool to understand that. Now, this is a busy one. You don't often book map so many people together, but you can see the towards in a way here is, let me see if I can draw on this, right? So towards and away in this area is showing us a tendency for most people to be more towards. And what does that mean in terms of leadership, in terms of working with your team? That becomes important to understand. Where the overwhelm might come from is if we have a lot of consequences and deadlines and so forth, and your majority of the team is towards, then that's going to make it difficult for them to embrace and follow along. So you need to take a look at that and work with that, right? The questions you might ask as a leader to help you do that, and I just put up 5 here for you to consider. So think about this. You can write these down. There's no magic to these, but they're going to clearly open up the understanding of where people lie without even having to do the map. Okay. So if you ask somebody, what are your goals? And what will you have when you achieve that? Most people don't think about, okay, well, why do I want to achieve these goals? What's the reason? What will I have as a result becomes a critical understanding. And in leadership, as in coaching, asking good questions is critical, but listening between the lines is even more critical. So you need to pay attention to that. And we talk about that in some of our training. And what will happen if you don't achieve that? Are there some consequences that really need to be considered? So this is where you're starting to see the response of the person is going to be all positive towards, or when you get to that third question, if they dive into a lot of consequences, you now know that that person is more away from pain, away from consequences, and motivated by consequences rather than towards. So using the right techniques with your team allows you to get results much more quickly, much more easily. What are your first steps? And how are you going to keep on track? What's your accountability strategy to actually get there, right? Pinpoint the primary, secondary drivers. Which one is it? We have everything, as you saw on the graph. Everybody had a little bit of consequences, a little bit towards, and they're all there, right? So you can get that once you get your map, you get your worksheet, you can work through that. Then you come to the language that you use, the reframing of situations based on whether they are more away from or towards. So the avoid loss is the away from language that you want to use with people that are away from. The gain opportunity is the towards language. So these are the things that help you to navigate that. So within the book, you've got all this stuff mapped out. You just need to find the right section and jump into the book and take advantage of those. And like I said, there are more references being made available, online tools on the network, etc. Okay, so think about yourself. Do this as a homework right now. take a moment, write one sentence action plan, and have a look at how you position what you are writing. Is it because of the towards, or is it because of the away from? And then make a checklist to actually deal with those scenarios. So you might have the to-do list and timeline for when those things could be done by. Okay. Again, I'm not teaching how to lead here. I'm just really showing you some examples of situations and how you might deal with those. And so if I jumped into the book again and you were stuck with the decision making, you could come here and do a search on decisions, right? Okay, I still have my pen on, right? Or even clarity. And I don't know if you'll find the two words together, so it's probably unlikely, but let's just see if we can do clarity. And there's only one reference to clarity. Oh no, there we go. There's a whole bunch related to that. I was going to say I'll be surprised if it was only one. All right, so you have access to things that you can do, and they're all about giving you self-help, right? We know from the past probably 3-4 decades that one of the greatest value that people appreciate is being given self-help tools. Okay, so I'm hoping you appreciate the importance of this. Scenario 2, you have a team and they're stagnating, stuck in neutral. No one's really coming up with new ideas. The world is changing around you, but you're getting left behind. How do you get the team working together collaboratively rather than the solo independence that one of you left alone? And we're in a situation where remote virtual work is being done, and it's really exasperating this situation. And so we need to figure out how to draw people back into engaging, sharing ideas. We do a Monday morning huddle where people share what they've learned, what they're able to contribute this week, what's their plan. So we've developed it within our culture to do that. And all of these things are things that we've done in our own business, so they're not just made up stuff, right? Now, sometimes you're going to want to know who are the creative types, and you might need something like the AccuMatch map to identify those traits. Internal people, for instance, will tend to be more creative, high initiate. So the high option people are those people on your map, are on your team. And when you map them, you have the ability to pinpoint and balance the team. I did a paper, this going back 25, 30 years ago, where we studied different groups that I was leading in a software development. It was a team of about 40 people, and looking at the mix of how each group worked together, and the mix of creative versus structured, disciplined people. That was an important mix to understand. So having the map is really the only way for you to do that, unless you really spend months and years really getting to know every individual on your team to see where they would fit into that. Okay. So that's one. do some of those solo ideation blocks like we do every Monday. So that's a great way of participation, getting the team involved. Structure your meetings so that people know the purpose of the meetings and they can be engaged in the right meetings, not just having meetings for the sake of meetings. That becomes another paralysis situation. Too many meetings, people don't get engaged, they don't show up, and you lose the team. So a structure around the types of meetings will help you to also encourage that and build that the right way. Okay, so let me see if I can jump into the book again and see what we can find that is useful to groups. Maybe it's dynamics, right? And look, within the book, we have a index at the back that also tells you, what chapters to look at. So you can quickly find things you're looking for through that. You can also use this area that we put some scenarios and book parts and chapters, right? These are coaching ones. I picked a different one, but there will be similar ones for leaders as well. So let's go into team dynamics. Let's pick another one. All right, so this one is part of the introduction. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's see, page. Let's go down here. Presence over performance. Okay, that might be good to look at. Maybe if I put the whole word team dynamics in there, we'll narrow it down to just a few topics that you might want to look at. Right. Okay. So you get the idea of that. Ideation or ideas, right? Am I spelling it correctly? Yes. So you've got some topics on that. There is an exercise that could be useful, right? Focused ideation sessions structured with a template. So you've got a problem, idea, prototype. There we go. Great solution, right? So they're there. You might need to sift through a few things to find exactly what you're looking for, but I did that in just a couple of minutes, right? All right, so moving on to scenario 3, leading through disruption. COVID was one. We often hear pivot. There are market shifts that are going on. There is going to be, we see recessions every 10, 15 years. Those, if people don't prepare for them, the morale can really be impacted. And we're already starting to see some of that in certain economic climates that are going on at the moment. So those things are really important to understand also by the map. Let me grab the map once more. If we go back here by the map here, okay, whoops, I clicked the wrong side. Sorry about that. Okay, so we were talking about proactive versus reactive, and that would be over in this initiate area, right? And this group that I've picked are very proactive, so chances are that they may be quick to act, but this tells me whether they are able to embrace change, which is difference, easily, or whether we need to plan that and create a structured approach. So if I'm working with this team, then I know that this team is going to need me to structure things for them in order to embrace and come along. Otherwise, they will resist that change. So I guess I was on the wrong screen. Let me just show that again. Okay, so here is the initiate area that I was talking about. And over here is the tendency to be lower difference and higher sameness. So they need more time to embrace those change and to come along. Okay, so sorry about that. But again, great tool, lets you see the proactive versus reactive, but also looking at where the resistance is going to come from. So you can, again, here are some scenarios, how you do that, okay, and taking the team through who's going to do what decisions, what's the future testing, etc. And this gives them a format to follow and to work through that, right? Could you anticipate the future impact by thinking ahead? So, you know, a lot of people don't have that ability, so you need, as a leader, to work through that and create that anticipation in the plan, right? So I call it the resilience action plan. So you know, the mental toughness is not really about being tough. It's really about every time you hit a brick wall, a barrier, you go back into the plan and sit and do some work with the team to review the plan, identify the roadblocks. And resilience is really the ability to constantly move forward in the face of adversity. You want to be able to figure out a way through that. So working together, making a plan, filling in the blanks. And every time you do that, you also still want to go back to that future pacing action plan. You know, look at what could happen down the future so that it's not a surprise when it happens. That's really part of the way to allow people to embrace change more easily. All right, so, you know, this is basically just a quick overview. You've seen the book or one of the books. There's the coaching book, there is the leadership book, there is all the reference material that is going to be available in that. And I will see now if we have any questions. Let me just check. And as usual, I will try and field questions online with the team after the session. And I'll watch for any. So one thing I should mention is if you haven't joined the BIQ network yet, you want to access a lot of our master classes or mastermind sessions, do reach out and connect with us. It's on the BIQ.network and or the BIQorg.com. If you need to book a time, you'll get access to the book as we launch, or the books, depending on your role. As a coach, I recommend you get the leadership book first, share it with your clients so that they become an easier client to work with. Then your coach's cookbook becomes your tool that, in collaboration with their own book, allows you to get results. And clients will stay longer with you and appreciate the value that you bring when they are getting results consistently. And that's why all of this is important. I hope you can appreciate that. All right, I don't know if I have any more slides left. Let me just check. No, connect and grow with us. Let me just quickly see if my link is down here. If you want to connect with me, all right, you can reach out either through the network or email me at nagi@biq.org.com. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed our session today. Again, let me put this back up here. And I look forward to seeing you again, either on one more of these events or any one of these events. Again, next month, we will dive into a lot of new areas that are happening, but we've been doing it for a long time, so we will accelerate your learning and share with you how to leverage AI without impacting your business, your performance, your team morale, all of these challenges that are coming up as AI takes a stronger foothold in the workplace. Thanks, and